Hello everybody, welcome to Free SQL Server online training. This class is mainly focusing on how to install a SQL Server 2008 and what are the components on the SQL Server 2008. And also we will discuss what are the requirements to do before installation of 2008. And in the final statement, I'm going to explain what are the editions on the SQL Server 2008 available in the market, and at the same time, what is the main difference between SQL Server 2005 and 2008. Okay, before going to the installation, let's discuss on the PowerPoint slide. So these are the requirements which we need before installation. What are the requirements here? Windows Installer 4.5 and .NET Framework 3.5 SP1. These are the main components which you require to before installation of SQL Server 2008. So let's go on here. Let me open the software here, SQL Server 2008. Let me click support a 64-bit and 32-bit servers. So now here is the option. I am going to click on the setup button. So if I click on the setup button, let's go on here. My system, I think my system doesn't have these following features. See, SQL Server 2008 setup requires Microsoft .NET Framework and updated Windows Installer to be installed. To install these components, then after that we will continue the setup. Okay, now let me click on the OK button. Now I click here. So once I click the setup button, it display this kind of screenshot. So here these are the steps to install. First one is planning, then installation, then after maintenance, tools, resources, advanced options, and the option feature which is required to set it up, maybe as a 64-bit or 32-bit server. So before, in the planning, it shows the steps here. So what does it do in the planning? The SQL Server check the system catalogs, because before installation the SQL Server looks for any potential issues that can be prevent the successful installation of SQL Server 2008. Okay, so here is the hardware and software requirements. When we click on the link, it automatically goes in the website. So here the hardware and software requirements for the SQL Server installation. See, these are the catalogs. So once you click this button, hardware and software requirements, it open the website. See the Microsoft website, it shows the hardware and software requirements for the installation of SQL Server 2008. So these are the following for both 32-bit and 64-bit editions in the SQL Server 2008. So if you need, you can read it on here. See the requirements, following the requirements apply to all the SQL Server 2008 installation. Already I told you in the PowerPoint slide, this is .NET Framework and SQL Server native client and SQL Server setup support files. So these are all the requirements SQL Server automatically check before installation. So at the same time, the security consideration for the SQL Server installation. So before installation SQL Server, these are the best practice when you set up a SQL Server environment. So here is the features like physical security, use a firewall, so isolated services. I'm going to explain you each and everything in the next coming classes, because we have a 4 hours of security class. So let me click on the installation button here after finishing all these catalog checks. So here is the system configuration checker. So once you click, on here, it shows the supporting files. Do I have a supporting files in my system? Set up a support rules, identify problem that might be occur when you installation of SQL Server setup supporting files. Failures must be corrected before setup can continue. So that means once before installation, when I click on the system configuration checker, it will run and check the system components before installation. So let me click on OK. Now I am going to click on the installation button. So when I click on the installation button, it shows these kind of options here. These are the options before we installation of SQL Server 2008. So here the new SQL Server standalone installation or add features to the existing installation. That means if in my system I don't have any SQL Server installation, So going to install the new software of SQL Server 2008. So now I'm going to click on the button, so automatically it starts to installation. Here the new SQL Server failover cluster installation. If you have a cluster environment in your system, so then you can ready to install that in cluster installation too. So let me click on here. So once I click on this button, automatically SQL Server started to install the process. Before the installation, already now it's set up a supporting files. It's going SQL Server going to check the supporting files. So now let me click on OK button here. So here now I'm going to use the specific free evaluation edition, because I don't have a permissions to use the product key. Just only I'm going to use the trial version free edition here. So now I am going to accept the license and terms from the Microsoft. So here what does it do? When you click to install the setup supporting files. So if you need to update a SQL Server 2008, so now before installation it's automatically install the setup supporting files. Let me click on here. Now it's ready to install. So now it's setting the future install state. So now it's in process. So once completed, now SQL Server in the process for the current operation. So now here it's automatically install some set of files. So what is a Windows firewalls? What is it saying? Windows firewalls generated warning. The Windows firewall is enabled. So make sure appropriate port are open to enable remote access. So just ignore this one. This is not a big deal in present situation. If you have in a big environment, you should have to be set up following that installation support file. So now here after the installation of supporting files, now let's click on these are the components. So here is the components: database engine services, SQL Server replication, analysis service, reporting services, and these are the shared features to the other servers: business intelligence development studio, client tools, integration services, and client tools backward compatibility, client tools SDK. So these some of them features are very new compared to the SQL Server 2005. So let me select all of them. Now the SQL Server 2008 so install with all these features. So let me click on here. Once you install these related information going to be stored in this directory. C program file Microsoft SQL Server. Let me open here. C program files Microsoft SQL Server. See here. So these are the compatibility levels. I will explain you the next class too. So next, let me click on the next button. So once I click, the now SQL Server ready to install. Here the default system specify the name and instances ID for the SQL Server instance. So the name instance means we can give you the any name, any kind of name on the server. Just if you give, suppose if I give my name Kranti, so the my SQL Server shows the name of the Kranti. So now I'm going to give the default instance. When I click on the default instance, the SQL Server will install on the computer name because this is the default one. So let me click on here. So all this information going to be stored in this directory, and the system server name is the system name of my computer. So click on here. Now here the SQL Server check the disk space requirement. See, it shows the drive C. When you want to install a SQL Server, you should need a 3.2 gigs of space. So that's what it's showing here. So in my computer I have enough space. So now I am going to click on the next button. These are the different kind of SQL Server services. So if you want to start any services by manually or automatically, you can decide by yourself. Suppose if you choose a manually, you have to restart by yourself. Go and click on the start button. Otherwise, if you select automatic, so when you start the SQL server, then the automatic all the services start by itself. So here is the account name. If you can give the different account names on each services, here now the recommended options to separate account for each SQL server services. But in my system, I don't need to give the all different services. I'm going to do is I can give the all the SQL server services give into the one account option. So what I'm going to do, I can choose my account advanced option. Let me find out the available accounts here. The present system running in a Kranti account. So what I'm going to do is I'm select this one on the password basis, because I give you a password protection on my system. So you have to give the password. Now use the same account for all the SQL Server services. If I click on this button, it gives the all the SQL Server same thing. What I'm going to do is find out here the Kranti with the password. The specify the username and password for the SQL Server service accounts. Let me click on OK. So now here all the accounts are in the same with the password. If I click in the automatic, the SQL Server agent starts by itself automatically when the SQL Server starts. So the SQL, so these are the service accounts. Next, coming to the collision. The collation is nothing but a character or language which is operate in the SQL Server. This is the default one. This is the one of the important question when you attend an interview. The most of they ask the question, what is the default collation in the SQL Server 2008 or any SQL Server 2005? So the basic answer is latent general. So this is the default one. It's described here the detail Latin 1 general, case insensitive, accent sensitive. So these are all the information available here. If you want to select any kind of different collation, you can click on the customize button. You can select in a different language, Ukraine as Swedish, whatever it is. But in the SQL Server recommendation, and the default one is Latin. So I'm going to choose this one. So I set it up the service accounts and the collation in the SQL Server installation. Then I'm going to click on the next button. So when I come into the next button, I have to specify the authentication mode and administration for the database engine. So here when you come into the SQL Server, we have two kinds of authentication modes. One is Windows authentication mode and the mixer mode authentication mode. When you come into the Windows authentication mode, you have to enter your account name, but the password the SQL Server saved itself based on the Windows administration password, because the Windows authentication mode password, it comes to the Windows Server account. We cannot give any password. It's automatically default internally available in the Windows operating system. When you come into the mixed mode authentication, you have to give your account number and you have to enter the password here. So which one is more secure? Here the Windows authentication mode. Why it's going to be available in the next chapter on the security, because this is the installation. So I'm not going to be long conversation on this chapter because this is totally on installation. So I'm going to choose a Windows authentication. Then I'm going to data directories. So why it choose, oh, I have to add any kind of administration account. So now we are going to add a same account as a Kranti. Click OK. So now it's done. So these are the directories. So the data do directory, what are the any kind of information the SQL Server, user database directory, user data log directory, temporary database. So these all the information stored into these directories. So these are the file stream. If you want to enable, you can enable the file stream or you can disable. This feature I'm going to explain in the next class too. So now I am going to click on the next button. The same scenario, when you come into the analysis services configuration, you have to add a same user account. The data directories which is related to the all analysis service configuration information going to be stored in the particular directories. The log file directory, data directory, and temporary directory information, backup direct. So these are the all path. If you want, you can change it by here. You can change your directory. So these are the default stored information. So let me click on the next button. So these are the three options. These are the reporting service configuration. So you can install the reporting service configuration by the three ways. I'm going to choose the default one. Install the native mode default configuration. So these are the options. If you want to, you can choose it here. So if you have any error or usage repeat, you can, if you need to send back to the SQL server, you can click on it. If you don't need to be, you can ignore the information, because these are the two options you can select, because in particular scenario I don't need to send back to them. So let me click on the next button. So now here setup is running for rules to determine if the installation process will be blocked. So it's going to be check, is there any blockage before installation? So that's why operation is completed here. The failed 0, warning 0, and skipped 1 is 0. So let me click on the next button. So now installation rules. So these are the installation rule total summary. What is enterprise evaluation action? The activation is installed. These are the features available in the general configuration, analysis service, SQL Server replication, business intelligence, the client back to compare. So these are the availables. Some of the tools which are available in the 2008. So some of them may not be available in 2005. In the instant configuration, you can choose the instance name, which is we declared already in the default one. So instance ID, analysis services at the same point in the reporting services too. In the shared components, the shared feature directory, all the information which is stored into the particular here the path, and at the same point the shared information which is already stored in the 32-bit information shared. So here the shared feature, all the directory information going to be stored in the 32 server. So the error and usage information we select as a false. That means we don't need to send back to the Microsoft SQL Server. And at the same instance configuration, you can select by the different services. So you can select by the account and give the password and the started type. If you start the SQL Server, so it may not be start by automatical or manually, you can choose by yourself. So the same scenario, analysis services too. All the information is going to be stored in a particular different directories. And the database engine, here is the account and the startup type account. So all the information is available by step, so we can recheck by before installation. So now let me click on the next button. Let me click on the install. Now SQL Server ready to install. So let me click. So now it's going to ready installation. So now when you run the installation, it takes maybe half an hour to 40 minutes time, because it's a lot of configuration components available. So let me find out here. Yes, now the SQL Server installation is completed. So now let me click on the next button. It shows the following the nodes applied to the release of SQL Server only. So once I close, so after SQL Server installation, the summary log file has been saved to the following location. Let me open it. So the overall summary and machine property information. So every log file information what happened in the SQL Server installation activity, it was stored in the particular location. So you can see here the details results, the database engine service, it was installed or no. It's so C is a past, means that's fully installed. Reporting service, so every kind of operation which happened, it's stored here. So now let me close this and close this option. So now let me go in the programs, all programs. So here we can see the SQL Server 2008. See? So now at the same scenario, it's automatically default installation SQL Server Visual 2008. So now let me click on the SQL Server 2008. So these are the available components: the Business Intelligence Device Services, Management Studio, Analysis Services, Configuration Tools, Documentation Tools, Integration Services, and Performance Tools. So let me open and show you the one component, Management Studio. So this is the SQL Server 2008. What is the server name? We have to browse it. So these are the database engine, analysis services, reporting services. So let me click on the database engine. So we declared already has a default instance because my computer name is kranti.pc -pc. So this is the database engine it shows now. Let me click OK and connect on the Windows authentication mode. If you give the SQL Server authentication mode, you can give it here. So let me click on options. You can select has it connected to the database as a default, or you can connect in the different databases. So these are the additional options. It will come into the next class too. So let me connect it here. See, now the SQL Server 2008 connected with the automatic SQL Server agent service. These are the database, security, server objects, replication, management. So these all features and components will be coming to the next class. So this is the total SQL Server 2008 installation process. I hope you enjoy the class. Then we will meet you in the next class. Thanks for your patience.